In this video I'm going to show you how to make this ring. It's a great project for beginners who want to try commercial jewellery making skills. You'll learn how to cut a 6-claw setting, and it's actually a lot easier than it looks. Check it out. For this project I used the following materials: a 6mm CZ, I used a 1mm thick strip of sterling silver for the setting, it's 5mm wide and 20mm long. And for the shank I used a 1.4mm thick piece of sterling silver that's 3.7mm wide and 60mm long. Once you've squared off the ends of the small strip that we're going to use for the setting, you'll find that if you followed the instructions so far you should be just over 20mm, and we're going to be using a 6mm round CZ. And if you do your calculation for making a setting for a 6mm stone, you'll find that this is pretty close. Now when you're used to making jewellery, once you get experienced, you very rarely do the calculations. You kind of know just by from experience and by looking at the length that will form the right size. And the method that we're going to use now to make the setting, you'll see that it's pretty flexible. You can squeeze the setting in, you can open it out to get the exact size. So at this stage it's just a matter of getting a rough length, and you'll see we can squeeze and shape the setting later on. So turn the end like so. If you've annealed it, it shouldn't be too difficult in silver. Just grip the end again on the other side, and again start the forming at the ends, and then you can use the side of the bench peg to help get the two ends together. This is a 17-degree collet block. Find a depression that fits the setting in. Doesn't have to be too tight, like this one here is going to start scarring around the bottom there, so as long as you've got something showing above the collet block like so, that will work. And a good firm hammer, give it a couple of taps one way, a couple of taps the other way. Might be the case that you'll have to do that a couple of times to get it perfectly parallel and to ensure that the two sides meet perfectly. So I'll melt the flux, pick it up with my solder pick. Now you might be used to just placing your solder on the joints and heating it up. Doing it that way, that's fine to do that. Just make sure you're ready with a solder pick to move the blob of solder into position. And once it's done its job, just ensure that the solder has run on the inside as well, so you should be able to see it right on the inside. I can now see half of the thickness exposed, as you can see there, and that's how it should look when it's finished, but it's not finished, it's still a bit tatty, so it needs to be formed properly. And also it's a good idea to just place your stone over the holes in the collet block and just see which one offers the best size. So I can see it's that one there, that one would be too big, although the setting just fits in there. Now when I put it in this one, you can see that it's going to get really tight towards the top, and if I keep smashing it from the top, it's going to peel over the block and there'll be a bit of metal wastage there. So the best way to counter that is to turn it upside down, just get a nice firm knock in that one there, and then we can hammer away till it's level with the block, and now you can start using the punch. When using the punch, make sure that it's perfectly square to the plate. So look from that direction and that direction as well, and then start hammering. Just get rid of any sharpness, and that's pretty much it for the setting. We're going to clean it up, but just ensure that the stone sits on it like so, and you'll see that because the block is engineered and has a perfect angled wall on the inside of those holes, then the sides of the setting are perfect, and the top of the setting, if you did hammer it flat, will be perfect as well. So the only part that you've got to worry about is the bottom part, because there's not a lot you can do about the way it deforms as it's going into the hole there. So the way to get that level is to set your dividers to the lowest part of the setting. You can see how it tilts when I hold it like that. So just run your dividers around at that point. Don't try and file it by eye, because it's really hard to get it level. So give yourself a guideline like so, and file it just to that line. I'm using my round nose pliers to hold it, but I'm not going to squeeze too hard because that will put a dent in the setting. And now I'll start forming the ring. And the way I do it is half round pliers to have the rounded part of the pliers away from you, and then push the strip with the other hand. Don't be twisting the pliers, just push it around. What you can do is just put it against the ring stick and make sure that you've got the right shape, and then do the other side, the other end. Same. Push it around and put the pliers just where the straight and the curve part of the strip is. Do the same. Come around and work on this side now, and just slowly get the two ends together. Get them overlapped. Make sure there's tension in there. Get them together and then line them up. And hopefully there won't be a gap. It should look like that. So we'll flux and hard solder that. Because I annealed this earlier, the metal shouldn't move around as I heat it up. And the joint stays together as the solder runs. Again, check that it's gone right under. Now I'll get the ring perfectly round on my mandrel. I'm just using a nylon mallet. Sure you turn it around so it doesn't take on the shape of the mandrel. And we've got a perfect size S there, and just check that the ring is straight that way as well. If it's not, just tap it on a steel block. I'm just going to skim over the surface here, and I move the ring into the file like so, and this maximises the contact. It's a very efficient way of filing. Identify where the solder joint is, There should be some evidence there. If not, just heat it up until you see a colour change. The solder will change colour before the rest of the silver. And make sure that the solder joint is opposite to where you're going to mark out. So I've set my dividers to 18mm. I'm just putting a little scratch line across, and now I'll squeeze my dividers right in, and I'm going to scribe a line right through the middle from one mark to the other mark. So the way I do it is I pretty much guess where the middle part is and then scribe along. I can see it's just slightly out. That's okay, I'll just go back the other way and I cut between those two marks. So using a 4/0 blade, make sure that you've got the right tension, and start in the middle, start cutting. Now I've got to the line there, so I'll turn around and I'll work on getting to the line on the other side now. I've got to the line on the other side as well. So just check underneath, again, it's all on track. Put a penknife inside and just start prising it open. You might need to use a screwdriver. I'm just going to take the outside edge off. And just have a slight D shape to the profile. I'll emery inside the slot, and also to get right in there I'll use this Moore's disc. So that's how it's looking, and now I'm going to work on fixing the setting to the shank. First of all, you need to identify where the solder joint in the setting is, and because there was a slight opening before, I've got a little bit there that gives me the clue. You can see it's not quite soldered there. If you can't find the evidence, again, heat it up until you see that line of solder. Now we're going to line up the solder joint to the to this end here. It's got to be perfectly in the middle like so, because it's going to be one of the cutouts there. You don't want the solder joint actually becoming one of the claws. Now this needs to be opened up a little bit more, so I've got a slightly bigger screwdriver and I'll just twist it one way then the other. And any tool marks you put on from now on need to be cleaned off later. Now I'm going to put some cuts in the bottom, some fine marks in the bottom of the setting, and there's the joint there. At that point I might just put a mark on that so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So that's where the joint is, and now I'm going to file at the bottom one side, and I'm holding the setting very gently with the pliers because again the tool marks have to be taken off. I've set my dividers to 2.5mm, and I'm just going to put a scratch just onto the side of the setting like so, and you'll see that the file that I've just done has gone to around about that point anyway. I'll give you a chance to look at that. now my half round file, I use the edge of it and I'll just file right in the middle between the mark I've just done and the very bottom of the setting. Give you a chance to have a look at the way I've cut them, because it's really important to get it right. This will help you to fix it to the shank and it'll hold in place whilst you solder it. So let's give that a go. So I'll try that now. There we go. Quite happy with that, because as you can see when you look through at that angle, you can see that once I file it, it'll take on the ring shape. I'll just put a little bit more solder on. What I do is put a mark right through the middle of the setting, and I've got that little nick there which is evidence of where the solder joint is, and that is spot on right in the position I want it to be. So just put your saw blade across like so, look directly down, and that is where your cut should be. So go on the other side, just rest your blade right in the split there, or just at the point of the split there, and just let it rest on the edge of the setting, and a little forward nick like so to leave a mark. So you should have a good trained eye to see that that is nice and square when you're looking at it, straight down. Now ideally, if you place your blade right across from that one point to another, it should go right through the setting, splitting it into a perfect symmetrical two half circles. So you can see that as you look down, that is just where it should be. So I'm quite happy with that. So again, I'll just do a forward drag of the blade to leave its mark, and I'll give you a chance to look at that. So we've got the perfect half circle there, and see that should line up perfectly with the point there and on that side too. So the first two are really easy, and now this is where your trained eye should come into play. What you need to do, get your scribe and just guess what the marking should be for the other two on one side, and my trained eye is telling me that that's divided pretty well. I'm not going to say perfectly, because I'm going to check that in a minute. I'm going to go on the other side and do the same again. Don't worry if you can't do it, there is a way of double checking, but it's always good practice just to see where how your marking is, your ability to mark without devices. So that's my 6 marks, and these are the marks that are going to be the scalloping, the cutouts. Next thing to do is set your dividers to around about halfway between the top of the setting and the top of the shoulder or the shank there. And I've actually got it a little bit more than that, but that's okay, because we're going to do some tweaking again later. This just gives you a guideline to cut to. The main thing is you don't want to be cutting into the shoulder there, so just watch out for that. Cut straight down So that's the angle I'm going at, and I'll just cut till I hit the marking on the side. So I've just got it there now. And it's always good practice to go to the opposite side. And the cuts at the side, you obviously have to be very careful not to make contact with the shank down there. It's a little bit trickier. It might be the case that you can't cut as low as the others. I've just about got it to the same level. So that's how it should look. And now with the 3 square file, just run your 3 square through, making sure it's perfectly straight. So the flat side there should be square with the work. If you're not too sure, just look at the side and make sure that you're getting that triangular shape. So I'm just going to do it bit by bit, and this will determine the width of the claws. So don't overdo it straight away. And you can see the width of the claws are quite wide at the moment, so we can make an adjustment there shortly. It's all looking at the moment. This is a 1.8mm tapered burr, so you can see it goes a little bit pointy towards the end. You can use a barrel burr, as long as whatever you use has got to fit into the groove there. And if you're not used to using burrs, this particular one is pretty grippy, so it's say that it could catch hold of the corner of the claw there and take off and cause damage. So you have to be in really good control. So I've got full connect with both hands, so I can steady the pressure of the burr as it goes in. There is an alternative. If you haven't got this, then I'll show you another way. But this is the very efficient way of cutting the scalloping in. And again, the angle is slightly squarer to the original cut. But we do want it angled because it gives a nice look, a nice faceted look. Look at the side of the setting, you can get a nice reflection onto the stone. For finishing off the shaping of the scallops, you can use either a comb burr or a bud burr. Where again, if you haven't got one of these, then you can just whittle away with your round needle file and get the same effect. You can see I'm just running the comb burr, the fat end of the comb burr in just to take some of the edge of the claws there. And I'll show you the bud burr now. And you can see the bud burr's got a point to it as well, so it just allows for that extra bit of shaping. Now go into the cuts with some emery paper wrapped around your needle file. It's a bullet shaped greenie. Then this will put a nice polish on it. Now you can use string if you haven't got one of these. Set your dividers to approximately the distance between the girdle and the tail of the stone, and put a little scratch on the inside. Heartburn, this one's 3.3mm, and just start cutting into the inside of the claws at that mark point that you just did. And you'll see the angle is pretty straight that I'm going in at, and I prefer to hold the work in my fingers. Just gives me more flexibility. But if you're happier holding it in a ring clamp or a bench mate, that's fine. This burr's a setting burr, Don't often use these, but they do make the job easier because the angle of the point here is more like the pavilion shape, and because the claws are thick, I'll use this. It will straighten, this part of the burr is straight, and it takes the top part of the inner cut away, which I don't normally like because it reduces the size of the tip going on the stone, but in this case these claws are pretty thick, so I don't mind it. So I'll go to the opposite side, and the reason I go in first with the heart burr is it's a sharper burr for getting that initial cut. To do the initial cut with this, the burr can ride up and down and you lose track. You get one level high and one low. So that's the reason why I started with the heart burr. You can just see there's a little bit of flashing on the inside, just going around the inside of the scalloping there. So I'm just going to run my butt burr in there and just remove that. So check that it's level both ways, and once you're happy with that, and with my chain nose pliers, just rest one jaw on one side, and then with the other jaw just push the tip of the claw onto the crown of the stone. Then go to the opposite and then rest the jaw on the one you just done, and then the other one presses down and check that it's level, make sure it's not moved around, and then you can do the next two. So again I'm resting the jaw like so, and then I'm pushing down with the other one. And do the opposite side. And that stone is really secure now, it's clamped in real tight. I've got a 2mm cup burr here, so I'm going to shape the tips using that. And if the tips are nice and comfortable on the stone, it's just a matter of rounding them off with this. And that's pretty much it. So I'm just going to clean it up with a brownie and a greenie and then give it a polish. There we have it, set, polished and finished. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Check out my website as well, there's lots of free lessons, and if you want to become a jeweller, that's the place to go. See you next time.